Hi there, I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I offer this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit and for the soul. And it's titled Perspective. It depends on angles of vision. And I'm going to begin with a tale I've told before, but it's one of those tales that can be told basically with a shrug. You don't really need to tell the story, it's just basically, if you like, I don't know. It's one of those stories that I have loved and been irritated by, actually, in equal measure, depending really on the state of my own vision, the angles of my vision, my own current perspective, the state of my mind, the state of my heart, the state of my soul, which is ever changing. It really matters in the lens I'm kind of reading this story through. It has great things to teach, but also, irritating to some degree. But it's a tale that's worthy of telling from the Zen tradition and based in China, actually, I think. And I'm telling the tale really because it's kind of going to lead into a conversation I want to explore on the subject of perspective, really. It's a story about a farmer and his horse that could be called Maybe, Maybe Not. It's actually called Let's Wait and See. So the story goes that an old farmer is working hard in his fields. He has a wife and a son and ekes out a meagre living. One day his only horse runs away. Upon hearing this, his neighbours come to him and say, "Oh, this is absolutely awful. I feel so terrible. This is the worst news that could possibly happen to you. It's awful." To which the farmer replied, "Maybe, maybe not. Let's wait and see." A few days later, the farmer's horse returns, but it does not return alone. It brings with it another exotic female horse from far, far away. The horse is a mare, and a mare of rare value. But obviously had done a bit of wooing while he was away. Now, when the neighbours heard of this, they came and they exclaimed, "Oh, how wonderful! This is absolutely fantastic. That horse of yours has returned and brought with it another horse. And what a beautiful mare this horse is." To which the farmer shrugged, Maybe not. Let's wait and see." Well, the horses obviously got on very well and they produced many prized colts, making the farmer very, very wealthy in the town, actually. And the neighbours were so happy for him, and they came and said, "This is fantastic. Your new horses have brought you much fortune." To which the farmer annoyingly responded, Maybe not. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see." Now the farmer's son had grown into a young man, and wanting to prove himself to his father, he tried to tame one of the young colts. It did not go well. He was thrown from the horse and broke his hip. Now this left the son unable to walk, and on hearing the news, the neighbours came. They came to console their friend the farmer, saying, "Oh, this is awful. This is the worst news. Your only son will never walk again." But the farmer was not so upset and simply said, Maybe not. Let's wait and see." Later that year, the farmer's country went to war, and the army came by to conscript every able-bodied man for active duty. Now the farmer was too old to be taken, and his son could not walk, so he could not fight, so he was excused. The army simply took the farmer's horses, well, all bar one. All they left him with was his original horse, so he could keep on farming. So, was the farmer's life good? Maybe. Was the farmer's life bad? Maybe not. It would appear that good luck and bad luck are two sides of the same coin. It really depends on our perspective, on our vision, on the angles of our vision, how we see things. So, one of those stories which I like and dislike in equal measure, I think. I think it has good things to teach, but there are things, like all good stories, it really depends how we choose to interpret. I'll leave that to you. Anyway, I'm going to wander off on another tangent now, on another angle of vision, I guess. I eased my way into life on Monday morning. Did a bit of admin before, and then I thought I'd better take Molly out for a walk before it gets too hot. She didn't seem mad keen, actually, on leaving the chapel gardens. I think she wanted to just sit there in the gardens all day long. She spent most of the week doing that while I've been working outside. Well, working on my work, not gardening, but working outside. Yeah, she just wants to sit in the sun. But anyway, I thought, no. We wandered towards town, and after she'd been to the toilet at the town hall again, she tried to pull to go home. But I thought, no, I've got work to do today, and if I take you out later, it's probably too hot for a little dog. But so we wandered, and I kind of let her take the lead, which is a good thing to do with a dog sometimes, rather than, being utilitarian all the time. Let her lead the way and sniff around where she wanted to go. And we kind of went around near the market and the health centre, and then, of course, she made her way to Caffè Nero. We went in, I ordered my coffee. They offered Molly some milk, and we had a little laugh, really, about her recent refusal to drink milk from a paper cup. She will only drink, it would appear, from porcelain. And also her refusal to drink warm milk the other day, that she still wouldn't drink when it had cooled down, apparently only fresh cold milk for her. She is a girl who knows what she likes. I thought we would head towards the park and, give her a little run around before it got too hot. But she didn't want to do that. She wanted to sit outside in the sun. So we sat on the chairs outside, as we often do on days like this. Unfortunately, we had to sit in the shade because all the seats in the sun were taken. But Molly kept sort of pulling away just to find the little sunspots. There were several other people around just enjoying the day. Then two young people came to sit down. They seemed so happy and full of life, enjoying the weather, enjoying one another's company. I noticed, though, that one of them's arms that were bare and exposed were covered in whole numerous scars that were obviously caused by self-harm, some rather deep and thick ones that had healed at some point. And I winced, really, and imagined the pain that they must have been through in their life to have experienced what they experienced. So what I witnessed, I guess, that I made a story up in my own head. I don't know what's true and what's not true. It was just my response to what I saw. And actually, I don't know what was going on. They sat there, they were having a lovely time chatting about life and things that young people talk about, and the day and what they were doing and what they were doing with their lives and all that kind of thing. They were happy. They were enjoying the sunshine. They were enjoying the day. It was me that painted a picture from my own being, from what I saw through my eyes. They were very happy. A little while later, actually, a friend passed by. He was in Altrincham by mistake, actually, in some ways. He was here for an appointment, but he got the times muddled up and was 2 hours early, so he was kind of killing time wandering around. So he said, "Do you mind?" I said, "No, come on, we'll talk for a while." And had a wonderful conversation. I kind of subtly mentioned the two young people. It was fascinating how he had a completely different perspective to me about what he saw. He kind of talked about the journey perhaps that the person had been on in their life, and that these scars were actually marks of survival, of healing, of becoming who they are. An angle I would have taken on a different day, perhaps. I'm really glad, though, that he that day viewed something from an entirely different angle to mine. It led to a fascinating conversation about perspective, about how we see things, how what we often see in life and the world, what we often read in literature and ancient texts says as much about the state of our inner mind as it does about the state of the world, or what we're actually trying to understand by these ancient texts. We don't see through clean, fresh eyes. What we see, what we read, what we evaluate is due to the condition of our own condition. I just popped in to see what condition my condition was in. Yeah, we need to check that out all the time, don't we? They say that the eyes are the windows of the soul. Perhaps that's true, but I'm not sure. I think it might be the other way around, actually. I think depending on the condition of our soul affects how we see the world through our eyes. Maybe it's a two-way glass. Who knows? I guess it all really depends on our angles of vision. Brings to mind actually a favourite song of mine called High, from the album of the same name, High, by New Model Army, which was released in 2007 now. Hard to believe it's that old. But it's these 4 lines that came to my mind as I was sat there. It's about looking down on the world from a great height, because you can't really see things when you're stuck in the middle of things. It gives you perspective to look down, angle of vision, I guess. Anyway, these are the 4 lines. All these things you fear so much depend on angles of vision. From down in the maze of walls, you can't see what's coming. But from high on the high hills, it all looks like nothing. But from high on the high hills, it all looks like nothing. Looks like nothing. Yeah, sometimes we need to rise above things to get a proper perspective. I was about to leave and go back home with Molly, and then Ronnie appeared, Molly's best friend, with one of Ronnie's owners. And I said hello, and they said, "Oh, I'm just taking Molly out before I have to go and do Ronnie out before I have to do some work as well." Well, Molly got very excited and wanted to play and walk now. So we did for a while, and then we headed off to the park and they played together, Molly demanding the ball so that Ronnie could play with the ball. Not for her, for him. Quite funny, really. And we enjoyed another interesting conversation before I headed home with thoughts of perspective on my mind. My angles of vision had changed in the space of an hour or so. Earlier in the conversation, my friend at the cafe had asked me how I write, how I create my worship, how I create these devotions. He'd seen the video that I'd done last Sunday, and he was asking me about it. He's told me, actually, found it really interesting, and he kind of run the whole thing through AI just to try and get a brief synopsis of what AI thought I was trying to say. It was a fascinatingly accurate overview, actually. It was shocking, really. I thought to myself, when I was creating publicity for that video and for the service, I could have done with this overview, and actually it would have been better than how I summed it up. Although maybe not. It depends, doesn't it, how you see things. But it offered a fascinating perspective. He asked me about how I put things together and my style. Do I have a style? And I kind of, what I said was, I told him that a few years ago, while watching an episode of The Simpsons, I realised that my style of writing was very much like an episode of The Simpsons, which puzzled him somewhat. what I said was in that I set off in one direction, and then at some point fairly early on, I tend to veer off in a completely different, well, seemingly completely different direction, but actually the one I always meant to explore with the subject matter. It is sometimes more difficult to see the link than others. In fact, I'm about to do it now in a few moments. So I call my style the Simpsons method, which I think at first we thought was an official, and other people, when I've said this to other people, they thought it was some official style of sermon writing. But no, well, maybe it is, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know. But to be honest, I was just messing about. Although there is truth in it. There is humour and there is truth. People sometimes say it's hard to tell when I'm being serious and when I'm having a laugh, and they're right. What I usually answer to that is, well, you can tell when I'm being serious because I'm being very serious. Some of the other time, not so much. Anyway, here we go on a journey around perspective. No doubt you will not see it exactly through my angle of vision. You'll come to it the way you come to it. Perspective, how we view ourselves and our world, impacts on how we view the contours of our own lives. Yes, external circumstances have a massive impact, but it's not just about what's going on outside of us. We see through our eyes, and our vision is shaped by our souls. Discovering a healthy perspective is vital to the good life. A bit like the farmer, really, he had a healthy perspective. Well, that's what the story's trying to teach, actually. In fact, maybe this is what they mean when they talk of maybe this is what enlightenment is. A healthy perspective will enable us to persevere with tenacity, actually, throughout the ups and downs of life, like the farmer did. I have a friend who often talks about his grandmother telling him that what he needed in life was perseverance. That was the key. And he never really understood what on earth she was talking about then. But now he's in the second half of his life. It makes perfect sense to him. He has a different perspective. And true perspective is what will carry us through the ups and the downs of life. In many ways, I suspect that this may well be what Jesus meant by a pearl of great price, mentioned in Matthew's Gospel. This is real faith, perspective. Interesting, eh? The kind of equilibrium, so that we can go through the troubles of life that will carry us through. Doesn't mean we're not affected by them, but we stay the course. You know, it matters how we look at things, how we see the world, for it creates our perspective. It also matters how the world sees us. It was fascinating listening to my friend's perception of the young person outside the coffee shop. It opened my eyes that day. It matters how we see the world, and it matters equally how the world sees us. Monday was one of those days filled with fascinating interactions and conversations. Ones I had no idea what I would experience when I woke up. Were they good? Were they bad? Maybe, maybe not. But if nothing else, they filled my heart and my soul with nourishment that I'm now attempting to share with you. Hopefully you have ears to hear. Perceive is an interesting word. It shares the same Latin root as the word receive. They both come from percipere, which meant to understand, from per, meaning entirely, and capere, meaning to take. So to perceive something means to take things in entirely, completely, in a way that covers us with understanding. So yes, it's interesting how we perceive things, how we take things in. I wonder how you're perceiving this video up to now. What an is that guy going on about again? It matters how we perceive, how we take in life, and it depends on the angles of our vision. No one sees things directly, exactly as they are. My friend and I had a long conversation about how people hear what you say, how people have interpreted things that we have said and come to the exact opposite conclusion to the point that we were making. Not only did they misunderstand, they got it completely wrong. But they were convinced it's what we meant, what I meant, and what I said. We shared some amazing examples of people. It wasn't so much that they got the wrong end of the stick; there was the wrong end of the universe. It seemed they was completely misunderstood or misinterpreted what was meant, which says something about the state of their mind when it was received. But it was interesting to compare that to his AI tool. Not that AI doesn't have biases, by the way. Of course, AI has biases, those placed on it by those who created the tool. Important to see that. But that interpretation was interesting. We all look into the glass dimly, or at least we look at things from angles. We look at the world through a mirror in some degree, actually, as we see the world, life, events through our own lens. We don't see through clear glasses. My glasses are never clear, as you can see, not fully. So one of the reasons I don't like wearing sunglasses, although apparently I need to, is that they dull the light, which is the point of them. But I hate it. I want to see things as they are, not under some dimmed view, especially on days like this. But no one experiences things exactly as they are. It comes of each of us through all kinds of filters, lenses. We all have our biases and our prejudices. Does anyone ever really see things exactly as they are? No, I don't think so. We all look through the world through tarnished eyes. And it matters how we see the world. The physicist David Bohm, if that's how it's pronounced, asserted that what we take to be true is what we believe. What we believe is based upon our perceptions. What we perceive depends on what we look for. What we look for depends on what we think. What we think depends on what we perceive. What we perceive determines what we believe. What we believe determines what we take to be true. What we take to be true is our reality. It really depends on angles of vision. And reality, it seems, can be very different for each of us. But it matters how we see the world, and it matters how the world sees us. It is the same with what happens to us, our perspective, and how we respond to what happens to us, and the life in which we live and breathe and share our being. Our perspective matters. It isn't just about what happens, although of course that of course impacts. Now, I'm not suggesting otherwise. I'm not saying that we create reality, but we perceive reality differently, and that comes from our souls. But I don't think we create the reality that we live in. I'm not going there, and the Matrix and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm saying. But how we perceive it can be vastly different. It matters, and how we see things, our perception. Was the farmer's life good? Maybe. Was the farmer's life bad? Maybe not. Who knows? Good luck, bad luck, if you like, are two sides of the same coin. And it's not always so binary, is it? It depends on the perspective that we choose to view reality in any given situation. And maybe that can be changed when we change our nature of our souls, if you like, the nature of who we are as people. Then reality can seemingly change, but actually we've just perhaps got a new pair of glasses, a new thing to vision life through. Life hasn't changed, and yet reality can seem so different. How we perceive ourselves, how we perceive life matters. It shapes our perspective, how we view the world. Perspective shapes the contours of our lives. How we see the world depends on the angles of our vision. Our lives are not shaped only by our circumstances, but how we respond to these circumstances. Do we close down our hearts, our minds, our souls, or do we remain open to new possibilities? Well, if you're anything like me, it will be a mixed response. For we all go through dark times when how we see life is not so beautiful. And we all go through times when we perceive life is both beautiful and incredibly refreshing, like a new world comes into view. We envision something new, new vistas, new horizons. But the truth is the world really hasn't changed that much. In Luke chapter 11, Jesus is reportedly said, "Your eye is the lamp of your body. If your eye is healthy, your whole body is full of light. But if it is not healthy, your body is full of darkness." And thus we see the world. Perception is vital. It matters how we see the world and how the world sees us. It matters what we believe about ourselves, and it matters what we believe about life. I believe, now this is my perception, my understanding, but I believe this for a long time now. I believe that we are created in the divine image. We are not the divine, but we are created in that image, a likeness. That there is that of God in each and every one of us. I believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And it matters what we believe, how we perceive people. And it matters that when people see that I'm a Unitarian minister, that they understand that that's at the heart of my being, perhaps in contrast to other belief systems, I guess. Not that we have a belief system, by the way. But I believe in original blessing. And I believe that it is our task to bring this blessing alive through our human being, our fragile human being at times, our vulnerable human being at times, our sometimes broken humanity. We all have feet of clay. We are perfectly imperfect. It is okay to stumble and to struggle with things at times. I hope that when people see me, that they see that reality. I hope they see the truth. But we all have feet of clay, and we are all more human than otherwise, aren't we? All of us. But knowing that we get things wrong, that we are fragile, that we are finite, that we are imperfect, if you like, does not mean that we are wrong at the core of our being, that we are fundamentally flawed at the core of us, that at the heart of us there is something wrong. It does not mean that. I reject that perspective. We have capacity, and we are born with that capacity, I believe. Therefore, that influences how I perceive life. This is my perception, and it influences how I see the world. And I need to acknowledge that. This is the lens through which I see everything. But it's not a perfectly clear lens. Of course it's not. It's clouded. It's probably marked a little. That's why I don't like wearing sunglasses, though, because that means you can't see things as they are. But I also have to accept that this means I have a bias at times when I look at the world. This is my perspective. And perspective is so very important. It matters how we see things and how we are seen, actually. It is important to see things as they are and to be seen as we are. It matters what we perceive, and it matters how we are perceived. It's not a one-way thing, it's relational, I guess. Perception shapes how the world looks at us, and equally perspective shapes how we look at the world. How we look at others is so very important. We can look at people with compassion, or we can give them a hard look, can't we? Think about it. If someone gives you a hard look, how do you respond? What do you do? How do you perceive that look? Well, people are often respond in fear and turn away, or in anger and aggression and turn towards. But what happens when someone looks at us with compassion? How do we respond to this when someone looks at us through loving eyes? Well, hopefully, mostly, we respond with compassion too. Or we do, unless we've gone so far into the pit of nihilistic despair that we respond to such love with hatred and violence, really, in the same way that some people respond to fear. Most of us have been there at some point in our lives. I know I have. So it matters how we view our own humanity, our own souls, and it matters how we view the humanity of others. Do we see that same spirit and that we're born from the same flesh? Do we accept that reality? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it depends on the day. How we act toward others really matters, but it's not just about doing what's right. That's good, but it's not enough. It's also about the spirit in which each task is conducted by each individual. We can appear to be encouraging and loving and doing the right thing, but our eyes may say something very different. Think about when we smile at one another. We think, that we smile with our mouths. Cover your eyes, see if that's a smile that you see. But we don't really. It's these eyes again that will stay the state of our being. The two-way conversation, really. When I smile, I know it annoys people sometimes. Actually, they tell me to open my eyes. Well, I can't smile and open my eyes at the same time. It's just the way my face is constructed. But when I smile, my eyes stretch. My eyes smile too. It's not just my mouth. My eyebrows and my eyes are they're all shaped in the same strange way, it would appear. But that's just the way I am. Think about a smile. We don't just smile with our mouths. We smile with our eyes. Whatever we do and however we do something, our eyes will reveal the truth of our hearts. And people they may not even be aware that they're doing it, but they will pick this up intuitively. They will see it through their own eyes. It's how we're made. Human beings are meant to look for these things, assess. Some others more than the average. I'm constantly doing it, making up stories like I did with a young person on Monday. But sometimes that clouds my vision, my biases, looking for what I'm looking for. How we see the world matters, and how we respond to what we see, perhaps even more so. For our lives truly are in the eye of the beholder. It's about perception. How we see one another is vital. It's all about perspective. Try not to look so hard today. You never know, the eyes looking back at you might just stretch to a smile. You never know. You never know. It all depends on angles of vision. We've come to an end now. You may be relieved to hear. And I'm going to end this reflection with a few words of blessing. For we need to bless more, and we can all bless. We bless by giving ourselves wholeheartedly to life. So I'm giving you wholeheartedly my life right now, before you return to your lives. Let us live open-heartedly, so that the Spirit that lives to set us free can enter into us and fill our hearts, so that we may become beacons of love and connection to all that we meet in this world. And may we carry that same Spirit with us, and may we do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, in all that we do. Amen.